Welcome, everyone, to a special March Madness announcement. I'm Andy Katz, pleased to be joined by Dan Gavitt, the NCAA Senior Vice President in charge of basketball, and Mitch Barnhart, the Athletic Director at the University of Kentucky and the 2021 NCAA Men's Basketball Tournament Selection Committee Chair. Mitch, I'm going to start with you. The announcement that the NCAA tournament will be reduced from 13 sites to one geographic region. Why was that decision made?
Well, Andy, I appreciate you asking. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle that went into this decision. The committee has worked really hard over the last several months. This hasn't been an overnight decision. We had 3 parallel working groups looking at different components of the tournament. With the leadership of what Dan Gavitt has done with us, with the NCAA basketball staff, we coalesced around a decision that we were not going to be able to host the tournament in 13 different sites. It was just through the pandemic, it was unreasonable to expect that. We've had an opportunity to monitor other sports championships and sports leagues and things that they have done to try and have success in running their tournaments and their leagues. And we felt like getting to one geographic location gave us the best opportunity to do that for the safety and the health of the participants, the officials, and all of the workers that are putting that thing on, just to have an opportunity to get a really special championship and crown a really special champion in 2021.
Yeah, Dan, throughout the course of this pandemic, we have seen that not all states are created equal. So in weighing this decision, how much was that a factor in dealing with, so many different state guidelines and protocols, even way off until March, that it made more sense to deal with one region?
Yeah, very significant factor, Andy. We've seen that the pandemic has been managed at the state, county, and city level with local health authorities. We know that that's almost certainly going to be the case even in March and April. And trying to run an event of 68 teams, 67 games over 3 weeks in a safe and responsible way really needed to be managed in a much more controlled, singular environment. So I think the committee's made a really sound decision here, disappointing as it is to be able to go away from our valued hosts for 13 different sites from first 4 through the regionals, but condensing this to one geographic area that we can do it in a much more safe and responsible way is where we need to be.
Dan, let me follow up. The Final Four is scheduled to be at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. What are the chances that could end up being one of the candidates or the candidate to be that geographic region?
Very much so, Andy. We've had initial discussions with the state of Indiana, with the city of Indianapolis, to see if it's feasible to run the entirety of the championship in the Indianapolis metropolitan area. Given that the Final Four is scheduled to be in Indianapolis, where it's been on a regular basis, where the NCAA is headquartered, of course, and we've got really good working relationships and great support from the Hoosier State. We think that may be our best option if we can work out all the important details around competition venues, practice sites, hotel arrangements, medical resources that are all very available here in Indianapolis. So that's our hope, but we still have a long way to go to finalize all that still.
And Mitch, as I mentioned, Lexington, Kentucky was one of those preliminary sites. Based on future sites, the majority of these are already in the rotation. But what would you say to those sites that we're hoping to obviously host what we would think is the greatest sporting event in the American calendar, which we know would not have been the same because we don't know what would happen with fans and all that, but still that disappointment of not being able to host one of those rounds?
Well, number one, it's very special to get to host an NCAA championship in any way, shape, or form. And to host a piece of the March Madness puzzle is incredibly special. We've done it many times here. Number one, we regret not being able to give them that opportunity this year. That hurts. It's got people put hard work into these bids. They've done diligent work in preparing the cities, and we understand that the investment that they've made is significant, and time and sweat equity, whatever you want to call that. But to say that we absolutely want to make sure that they're in the rotation going forward and there's an opportunity for them to be a host in the future side is really important. We want to make sure that we give them every opportunity going forward to do that.
Explain a controlled environment where you could have a hotel, a practice area, an arena, really specific places where these personnel, whether it's coaches, players, officials, important tier one, would be allowed to go.
Well, as you noted, Andy, running any sporting event at this time in the middle of the pandemic is challenging because you have to make sure that you comply with local health authorities and state guidelines in order to be able to do that in a safe and responsible way. Getting things in place where, like you said, it won't be necessarily a bubble like maybe we've come to know, but knowing what the competition venues are, few in between that they may be, the practice sites, the hotels that the student athletes and teams would stay in, the meal arrangements, the medical resources available, having all those be centralized and be prearranged so that there can be specific schedules that are followed for testing requirements, for preparation for teams for competition. Those that win stay, those that in advance, and those that lose, go home. We feel very confident that we have a plan that's coming together that's going to make sure that it gives us the greatest amount of confidence for success for this incredible event and championship.
We've mentioned the number 68 in this conversation. How critical is that to get that word out that this tournament will still have 68 teams?
That's the number. It's been the number we've been focusing on. We're very focused on having 68 participants and having an opportunity to have them progress through the tournament to crown a national champion. So that's where we've landed, and we've talked about a variety of different ways to organize our thoughts, but it is always coalesced around 68 teams, nothing else.
And Dan, how critical is it to get this word out now before any balls are tipped on November 25th that there will be an NCAA tournament, which you have said from day one, and there's a plan. And of course, it needs to be fine-tuned and tweaked and official, but to allow all the teams, coaches, players, personnel across the country to know that there is a destination and ultimately we will get there.
Well, I think three things are really important here in the middle of November, just before we tip off the season. One is that every team knows that there's going to be March Madness in 2021. There's going to be a tournament to determine a national champion. Two is that we need to be fair to our host institutions and conferences that are so vital to running March Madness every year. And so many of them host on a regular basis. And so out of fairness to them, to let them know now in November, it provides an opportunity for those hosts to go and do other things if they can arrange that with their venues and with their opportunity. And three, now it gives us the opportunity also with more transparency to go and try to finalize the details of this that are so important. We've gone a long way. We've got a lot of really good things in place. We're very optimistic with what we're going to end up with here. We'll have more certainty in the next few weeks, and we'll announce that when the time is right. But we're excited about the possibilities of this. It's going to be a tournament like we've never experienced before, a historic tournament, hopefully like we'll never experience again, given the challenges of the pandemic we're all faced with. But it will be memorable. It'll be an incredible experience for the student athletes involved. And the national champion will have very much earned that right.
And the last thing, Mitch, as the logo says behind me, it says March Madness. How critical was it in thinking this through to say, you know what, we still want this to be March Madness, Final Four, early April?
You've got so many things going on, and it involves so many people's lives and so many different facets. You've got to give some clear direction to both coaches, staffs, athletes, to the people that are hosting the tournament. You can't just sit here and be ambiguous about where you're going on this thing. You've got to have some destination. And so Dan has done an incredible job of guiding us to a destination, really important. But Dan hit it on the head, and I've said it to our teams. Whoever wins championships in this environment must be adaptable. They must be flexible. They must be determined. They must do those three things. And if they can do those three things, they'll find their way through the madness, and they'll find their way through a way to win a championship. And we're focused supremely on getting to the destination of a Final Four and crowning a champion in that environment. Whether it looks exactly the same, probably not. But we're going to get there, and with Dan's leadership and the staff at the NCAA and a great committee. Let me tell you, these folks are working really hard. There's 10 people on this committee putting in incredible hours trying to find a way in July, August, September, October, now November, to get us to a destination in March.